Okay, so back into our fallout. I'm on chapter Alive and Kicking. The next morning in Moscow, U.S. Ambassador Lewin Thomas walked into the grand auditorium of the Kremlin Palace. The place was packed with 1,300 Soviet officials, gathered to hear an address from their leader. Thompson figured he'd sit with the other diplomats, as always, but was ushered instead to the front row. Why? He'd have to wait and see. The Soviet premier strode onto the stage. He spoke of economic plans and labor policy, and then he moved on to international affairs. Comrade deputies, he said, his voice rising in volume, I must report to you an aggressive action against the Soviet Union in the past few weeks by the United States of America. The United States has been sending aircraft that have been crossing over our state frontiers. He described the most recent overflight and his orders to destroy the invader. This assignment was fulfilled. The plane was shot down. Correct, correct, someone shouted. Shame to the aggressor. Outright banditry. Just imagine, Crenshaw continued, savoring the moment, what would have happened had the Soviet aircraft appeared over New York, Chicago, or Detroit. How would the United States have reacted? He glared directly at the American ambassador in the front row. What was that? A May Day greeting? Soviet officials roared and stamped their feet. Someone was pounding on the door of the trailer. Eck von Eisenberg, the giant German shepherd, was snarling and barking, eager to attack. Barbara Powers opened the trailer door. Two stern-faced men identified themselves as agents of the Central Intelligence Agency. They told her to pack a few things. Her other belongings would be shipped home. She was leaving Turkey right now. Where's my husband? She demanded, fighting back panic. Everything is going to be all right, Ms. Powers, said one of the men. Now please, just do as we say. What about my dog? I can't leave him here. You can bring him right along with you on the plane, Mrs. Powers. 30 minutes later, she was in the air, flying back to the United States. She kept asking for information about Frank and whatever was going on. What did it have to do with the CIA? The men would tell her nothing. They just kept pouring her drinks. Eisenhower stood at the White House lawn, smiling for the cameras, but without joy, like a kid forced to pose for a family photo. He climbed aboard a helicopter and headed west out of the city towards the Blue Ridge Mountains. This was the government's version of Operation Alert, a day of top officials to rehearse evacuating Washington. In his 8th year as president, Ike had long since lost any enthusiasm for these drills. I'm not sure whether I would really want to be living, he said privately, if this country of ours should ever be subject to a nuclear bath. With the rise of the super, the U.S. government had begun spending millions of dollars trying to figure out how the country could emerge from the ashes of World War III. The best solution? Leaders decided, move underground. At Mount Weather in Virginia, the government expanded an abandoned mine, constructing a small city inside the mountain. Reservoirs, power plants, sewage plants, cafeterias, a hospital, a crematorium. There were enough food and space for 3,000 people to live for a month. Only the president, cabinet members, and the justice of the Supreme Court got private rooms. No one could bring their families. In the bunker war room, red bulbs dotted an enormous map on the United States. One bulb would glow to mark each nuclear blast. In the TV studio, with a large photo of the Capitol building as a backdrop, the president would broadcast messages to whatever was left of the American population. Officially, Mount Weather did not exist, though local residents did notice that the road up the hill was always plowed quickly after snowstorms. It took the helicopter just 20 minutes to reach the bunker. Eisenhower walked through the 5-foot thick steel blast gate, past the decontamination chamber, and met in the war room with cabinet officials who were also participating in the drill. They'd heard nothing of Moscow about the missing U-2. They looked like the cover story was holding, until CIA Director Alan Dulles was handed a note just in from Moscow. Crenshaw had given a speech. He had said something about shooting down an American plane. Nothing about a pilot, more details to follow. Eisenhower decided to stick with his weather research gone wrong story. Without the pilot, the Soviets couldn't prove otherwise. At the press conference that afternoon, U.S. State Department spokesman Lincoln White repeated the fiction. It is entirely possible, he told the press, that having a failure in the oxygen equipment, which would result in a pilot losing consciousness and the plane continue to automatic pilot a considerable distance and accidentally violated a Soviet airspace. No one had told White the cover story was a lie. Comrades, I must let you in on a secret. Nikita Crenshaw was back on the stage at the Kremlin, again playing to a crowded house, loving every minute of building tension. When I made my report 2 days ago, I deliberately refrained from mentioning that we have the remnants of the plane. Dramatic pause. And he continued with obvious delight, we also have the pilot, who is quite alive and kicking. The hall erupted in thunderous applause. Now, when we learn that the pilot was alive, they will have now, when they learn that the pilot is alive, they will have to think up something else, Crenshaw said. And they will. Crenshaw insisted that he still wanted peace, but how could one deal with a government that told such stupid lies? The plane was studying weather, the oxygen equipment failed, the poor pilot got dizzy. Such a pirate, drone prone to dizziness, may in fact drop an oxygen bomb in foreign soil. And this means that the people of the land where this pirate was born will unavoidably and immediately get a more destructive oxygen bomb in return. 1,300 Soviet officials jumped to their feet and pounded the backs of benches with their fists.